The film starts in a cage full of little baby raccoons. While they are all freely playing among each other, a menacing figure, the High Evolutionary, approaches the cage. He reaches his hand out to one of the raccoons in particular, Rocket. In the present day, the Guardians of the Galaxy have taken refuge on Nowhere and set up their headquarters there. Peter has still been mourning the loss of the original Gamora and has been drinking himself unconscious, and Nebula has to carry him to his room. Meanwhile, Kraglin and Cosmo have a bit of a rivalry going on as they test their telekinetic abilities. Kraglin has been trying to master using Yondu's arrow with his fin, but he hasn't quite gotten the hang of it. From deeper out in space, the being known as Adam Warlock, created by the sovereign high priestess Aisha, comes flying in at full speed to Nowhere, crashing into Rocket. The Guardians leap into action, but during the fight, Adam tears Groot's head off and directly targets Rocket. Peter and Mantis try to help Rocket after he has been gravely wounded by Adam, while Drax attempts to beat up the Golden Man. Before Adam can kill Drax, Nebula impales him with one of her blades. The medpack that Peter is using on Rocket is not working and comes close to killing him before Nebula tells them to take it off him. Adam retreats while Nowhere is left in destruction. As the Guardians carry Rocket to safety, he appears to have a flashback to his time being experimented on by the High Evolutionary. He was marked 89P13 and thrown into a cage with 3 other animal test subjects, an otter with mechanical arms, a walrus with wheels for legs, and a rabbit with other mechanical attachments. They befriend the frightened Rocket and make him feel less alone. The Guardians find that Rocket has a kill switch in his body that could detonate if they attempt to perform surgery on him, and they figure Adam was sent to retrieve him. Nebula finds that there's a passkey that can override the kill switch, but it would be with Orgacorp, the company that experimented on him. Peter wastes no time in leading the Guardians to head out there to save his friends. At the irate lab on Counter-Earth, the High Evolutionary meets with Aisha and Adam, as they not only work for him, but High Evolutionary is responsible for the creation of the Sovereign, among other races and species across the galaxy. He sent Adam to retrieve Rocket, as he is High Evolutionary's most valued asset. When he tries to torture Adam for his failure in retrieving Rocket, Aisha pleads with him to stop. As she views Adam like her son, the High Evolutionary tells his henchman Theo that he knows where the Guardians are headed. The Guardians arrive at the Orgascope, which houses Orgacorp's headquarters. While preparing to breach the shield, Peter and Mantis discuss how he has never been to Earth since being abducted by the Ravagers, and Peter admits the only person he would know is his grandfather, and he has no idea if he is still alive. Ravagers headed by Stakar Ogord board the Guardians' ship moments later. The alternate Gamora has joined them, and she has been conversing with Nebula in secret, even though the rest of the Guardians are unfamiliar with this form of Gamora. Peter is taken aback. Stakar equips the Guardians with spacesuits and directs them to avoid Orgocentries while searching the company's records for information about Rocket. Another flashback reveals Rocket's intelligence, which explains why High Evolutionary kept him close. He'd also seen the rise of Counter-Earth, to which High Evolutionary was transferring his completed projects. He showed Rocket a machine in which he attempted to accelerate the evolutionary phases of various animals but had not mastered it to the point where they were anything more than mindless monstrosities that he would discard once deemed failures. Rocket appeared to have solved the problem regarding the proteins in the organisms they were using, much to the amazement of High Evolutionary. The Guardians descend on the Orgascope, with Peter attempting to have a heart-to-heart with Gamora, only for her to reject him because she is no longer the Gamora he knew and loved. They hide their spacesuits somewhere before being discovered by Master Carja's Orgocentries, but the Guardians pretend to be working there. Drax and Mantis go together, while Peter splits up with Gamora and Nebula. The former 3 meet Yura, an Argo employee, and force her to accompany them to the records. The Orgocentries pursue the Guardians just as they discover Rocket's file. Their spacesuits are sucked into space because they were stored in the incorrect location, but Drax and Mantis attempt to fend off the guards. Karja fires at them, striking Drax and Nebula and weakening them. Peter persuades Yura to assist them, and she allows him access to their systems to turn off the artificial gravity, allowing them to escape the Orgocentries and return to their ship. In another flashback, Rocket is seen with his animal buddies, dreaming of freedom. They come up with their names here. before Rocket chooses his own name after spotting a rocket soaring above Counter-Earth. The otter names herself Lila, the walrus names himself Teefs, and the rabbit names herself Floor. The Guardians watch Rocket's file and witness the atrocities he endured under High Evolutionary. The passkey isn't in the file either, but it is in the memories of a gadget in Theal's skull. When Peter sets off to find Theal, Gamora objects until Nebula tells her that Rocket is still a member of their family. The Orgocentries encounter Aisha and Adam as they accept a captive Ravager and his pet. While Aisha tries to get Adam to question the Ravager about the Guardians, he ends up frying him to death with his powers, infuriating Aisha. Moments afterwards, she hears Gamora communicating with the Ravager via radio, relaying coordinates for her to be picked up and unintentionally informing Aisha of their location. Another flashback shows the High Evolutionary bringing Rocket to observe his next trials, as he had refined Rocket's advice about the proteins in the animals to make his creations more sophisticated. Rocket is likewise treated as a failed experiment full of flaws by High Evolutionary, who subsequently orders the perfected beings to be annihilated. The Guardians arrive on Counter-Earth, which contains several suburban suburbs similar to Peter's that are populated by anthropomorphic animal species. When they arrive, Drax makes a horrible first impression by tossing a ball at a child's head, and the other inhabitants begin hurling garbage at the Guardians until Groot transforms himself into a giant to scare them away. After Peter assists a Batwoman, she invites him and his pals into her home, where they assist the Guardians in locating High Evolutionary Station in order to locate Theal, and the family allows Peter to drive their automobile with Nebula and Groot. When they arrive, High Evolutionary's guards lead Peter inside. In one final flashback, Rocket steals a device that allows him to escape by unlocking his and his friend's cells. After embracing Lila, High Evolutionary fatally shot her as punishment for the attempted escape. Rocket sobbed hysterically and clawed and disfigured High Evolutionary's face. Rocket killed 2 of his henchmen when they arrived, but they also killed Teefs and Floor. Rocket fled alone, regretting the loss of his companions. Back on Counter-Earth, War Pig, High Evolutionary's henchman, flies to the Guardians' ship to attack Gamora and Rocket. Adam comes upon War Pig as she tries to pull Rocket in, and he rips her head off. Peter confronts High Evolutionary about his deeds before he says that he is going to destroy the planet and start anew. Counter-Earth and its inhabitants are being destroyed. Adam attempts to return to Aisha, only to witness her spacecraft being blown up, before jumping out the window with Theal. Peter and Groot battle off some of High Evolutionary's thugs, and Groot develops wings to keep himself and Peter afloat as he drowns Theal and snatches his memory. The last Guardians return to their ship as the world starts to erupt around them. Mantis, Drax, and Nebula are stranded on High Evolutionary's ship, while Peter and Groot return to their ship with Rocket and Gamora. Mantis attempts to defend Drax while knowing he does silly things that get them in trouble. Peter, Gamora, and Groot race to utilize the passkey in order to save Rocket. He finds himself in a white realm, greeted by Lila, Teefs, and Floor as if welcome him to the afterlife. Rocket appears to be ready to join them until Lila informs him that he still has a role in life. They kiss before Rocket regains consciousness and embraces his pals. They then receive transmissions from Nebula, who has discovered a huge group of abducted children that High Evolutionary has been storing for experimentation with Drax and Mantis. They are pleased to hear Rocket's voice over the radio and are relieved to know he is still alive. Unfortunately, High Evolutionary captures them and informs the other Guardians of their capture. Peter guides them to their friend's rescue and contacts Kraglin for assistance. Drax is able to calm the captured youngsters down since he speaks their home language, and he also manages to make them laugh by acting silly, just like he used to do his own daughter. He, along with Mantis and Nebula, is placed in a room with 3 obelisks, but Mantis uses her skills to sway them to their side and aid them charge into combat. Kraglin and Cosmo assist in bringing Nowhere close to the ship, but High Evolutionary's men launch an attack. Kraglin sees a vision of Yondu, encouraging him to fly the arrow with his heart, and it succeeds when Kraglin destroys the High Evolutionary's drones while Cosmo uses her telekinetic talents to squash a henchman approaching them. The High Evolutionary's henchmen attempt to revolt, only for him to destroy them all. Adam joins the Guardians after they rejoin. They take on High Evolutionary's army and completely destroy it. Cosmo utilizes her abilities to get the ship closer to nowhere so that the Guardians can rescue and transport the abducted youngsters. Before departing, Rocket discovers a litter of newborn raccoons among other creatures and begins attempting to rescue them. High Evolutionary finds him and nearly murders him, declaring he is nothing more than a failed experiment, but Rocket reminds him of who he truly is. The other Guardians then arrive and give High Evolutionary a well-deserved beating before Nebula takes his face off, displaying the horrific disfigurement Rocket left him with. Rocket chooses not to kill High Evolutionary, but instead abandons him as his ship explodes. Rocket frees the other animals, but Cosmo's powers fail before Peter reaches nowhere. He nearly freezes to death in space until Adam flies him to safety on Nowhere. Back on Nowhere, the Guardians gather for one last time. Gamora intends to continue working with the Ravagers, while Peter wants to return to Earth. Mantis expresses a desire to go off on her own to figure out what she wants to achieve for herself, while Drax offers to accompany her. Mantis insists on going alone, and Nebula claims that Drax is better suited to care after the children because he was always intended to be a father, and she will be in command of Nowhere. Peter delegated his leadership position to Rocket so that he could lead the next Guardians team. Before Gamora departs, Peter admits that they will not be together, but there is some attraction and flirtation between them. He returns to Earth and meets his grandfather Jason for the first time. Following the Guardians' departure, Rocket is given Peter's Zune, on which he plays "Dog Days Are Over" for all of Nowhere to hear and begin to dance to. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more videos and give a like for channel growth.